Kai, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, dude. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I told you this before I hit record, but you get to hear it again. My wife sent me one of your reels on Instagram and started to dive into your content. And I love all the things you talk about. And then she goes, "You should get them on the podcast." And like
Yeah,
literally like a
man.
week and a half later or whatever, here we are. But the stuff that you're putting out is an important message for people to hear, right? Like it's for individuals who feel not seen, not heard, and it gives them something to go, "Hey, I'm not alone." They can laugh about it. And you talk about everything from ADHD to introversion to mental health to all those things. And especially as a male coming, putting that content out there, I think it's huge. But why don't we take a second and you tell my audience who is Kai today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
That's a good question. I don't know who I am. I'm still figuring that out, man. No. No, Kai today is the product of 35 years of not acknowledging the issues that I had going on in my life. And that is the result. That is because of a lot of different things, mainly because, there is such a huge stigma surrounding mental health and mental wellness that people don't want to talk about it. So when I was growing up, there was a lot of things that, can nowadays be pointed, towards like, oh, that's ADHD. That's this, that's that I just never talked about. So the person that you see today is a person that's looking to make sure that nobody else has to go another 35 years not feeling validated, not feeling that they're alone on a journey, and hopefully putting them in the right direction when it comes to their mental health and mental well-being. That's who I am today, and I try to do that with humor, because a lot of this stuff is so difficult to talk about. It's a very dark subject matter, and we've lost people, to mental health, issues and concerns and disorders, and it's a really difficult thing to joke about. But I also try to add a little bit of levity to it, so that it becomes a little bit easier for people to talk about, and hopefully, because it's easier to talk about, people can understand it better, and they will hopefully reach out and get the help that they need.
Yeah. So, as we sit here today, you have over 800,000 followers on TikTok, 200,000 on Instagram. Do you feel like there's like a weight that you carry having to share this information? Because like that's a massive amount of eyeballs on your content every single day.
That's a fantastic question, and it's one that I think about a lot, because I don't ever view it as pressure, but I do view it as I have a platform in which I'm able to help people. The hard part comes when people reach out to me and just want answers to their life, right? Which I can't offer. I'm not a mental health professional, nor do I pretend to be one. Um, I will always point people towards the route of getting, of speaking with a mental health professional. I would say that's the most difficult part, because a lot of times people don't know where to turn to. So the first person that they reach out to is, the random black guy from Philly that they, that they see online, that makes, videos that they can relate to. And so, like, that's probably the most difficult part. But I don't think I ever feel pressure. I'm just very mindful of the words that I use, and I try to help as many people as I can. Though I will tell you, it's really difficult sometimes when, somebody reaches out to you and they say like the words like, "I don't want to be here anymore." And it's like when you get hit with that kind of DM or email or message, you're like, "Dag, like this person's really, really struggling, and they're turning to me right now." um that's probably the most difficult, and with the more and more people that follow me, you get more and more messages like that. So I just try my best to point them in the right direction and befriend as many therapists, coaches, wellness instructors as I can, so that I can point people in the right direction.
Yeah, man, it is powerful, right? I remember a story I share often when people talk about like in the podcast world, most shows don't do very well. And for the first year and a half, my show was doing, 80, 90 downloads an episode. And they're like, what kept you going? Right. All these things. And now I have multiple millions of downloads and it gets played in 100 countries every single week. And I'm
That's a
blessed.
flex. You're flexing.
It's
I love it. I
it's a
love it.
flex, but I only say it because I was able to kind of push through
Yeah.
that pain of nobody listening. And there was a story, a guy, when I literally had in the back of my head, I'm like, you know what? I was around episode 45. I was like, after the year, 52 episodes is what I committed to. I'll shut it down. And somebody from Japan reached out to me and said, because of your show, I decided not to take my life.
That
Um,
right there. That right there.
that's it. And so from then on, I was like, I'm going to show up, whether it's one
Mhm.
person or a million people listening, I'm going to show up. Right. And so when you wake up and somebody who openly struggles with mental wellness and ADHD and all these things you're talking about, how hard is it for you to hit that record button when you feel like you're struggling and you're like, I need to get this message heard because now I know that all these people are relying on me?
It's very, very, very difficult, but I also, before I hit that record button and before I post anything, I always try to make sure that whatever I'm putting out there, I know why I'm putting it out there, right? What am I looking for? What am I looking to do? A lot of times, and I'm glad you brought up the numbers thing in regards to, like, you can have millions of followers, but if, like, none of that matters to me. It's those messages like the one you just talked about, when one person reaches out to you and it's like, hey, because of you, I went to therapy this week for the first time, because of you, this and this. That is what makes it worth it. It's really, really hard sometimes though, because you do put a lot of your life out there as a mental health content creator. But I always ask myself, okay, what am I looking for out of this? Number one. And number two, um, what what does this do for me personally? Like, will this help me at this point in my life? I don't put out anything that I haven't processed already. So anything that you see out there are things that I've already processed. So I'm not necessarily looking for validation or help or anything like that. It's just things that I've processed personally that I want to put out there and I feel comfortable talking about it. There are things now that I recorded that I'm not going to post maybe for another month because I'm still trying to figure it out. Once
Yeah.
I feel comfortable enough, then I'll post it.
Yeah, I love that, man. And so obviously people see what you've been able to build. And obviously we just said, hey, don't worry about the numbers. What matters are the one or two people that say, hey, thank you so much. But people see that and they go, wow, like that's something really cool. I feel like I've got a great message that needs to be heard, but nobody's paying attention. How much does authenticity in your messaging play into the growth that you've had, the impact you've been able to make?
That's one of the most important parts. Am I allowed to curse on here? It's
Oh
not,
yeah,
not a
yeah.
bad
Say
word.
whatever
Okay.
you want, man.
I think that people can see through the shit. People know when you're bullshitting them, right? Especially when it comes to, mental health and like good vibes, positive energy. There is a toxic positivity that's out there. But people can see through the nonsense. So I try to be as authentic and as real as possible, because otherwise people are not going to connect with you. If they see that you're just putting stuff out just to, like, put it out, then there's no reason for them to follow you because it's all fluff, right? So, like, I try not to do that. I want people to, like, of course, I safeguard a lot of the things, like, personally, like, I do curate my content, but ultimately everything that you see is me, and so I want people to be able to see me and connect with me, so they know that every word that comes out of my mouth comes from a place of joy, comes from a place of process, it comes from a place of wanting to help as many people as possible in a truthful way.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey and your kind of discovery, right? You talked about not being seen for so long, not being seen for 35 years, not understanding why you were the way you were. What made you start to explore that and kind of ask the right questions that led to your realization of all of these things?
I didn't have a choice, because the other option was not being here on this planet anymore. It got to a point that I honestly did not want to be here. I wanted to leave. I thought I was more of a burden than anything else. I thought that I thought that the world would be better off without me. And that's not good.
Mm,
And so, I had some very, very close people in my life that knew what I was dealing with and knew what I was struggling with. And I thank God for them, because, like, they pushed me to go and talk to somebody and get the help that I ultimately needed. And it's funny looking back at it now, because the more research that I've done and the more I've talked with my therapist and the more I've talked with other people, I look back and I'm like, man, the things that I've been dealing with my whole life, it had nothing to do with me being lazy or me, whatever, not being able to, pay attention in class. Like, there is a literal chemical imbalance in my brain, right? That is preventing me from doing the things that I want to do. And
mm,
so I look back and I'm like, dag, man, like, this is been here my whole life, and it took me 35 years, or 34 I should say, to get diagnosed with these things, and find out a way to manage it. So man, it's been quite the journey. Because like, imagine going, your entire adult life thinking that you know who you are, but thinking in the complete opposite direction, and finding out you were thinking in the complete opposite direction, and being like, oh shit, wait, I get it now. And then being able to switch your life around. It's been quite the roller coaster of a journey.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. So what was your first step in finding daily practices slash whatever else to begin to kind of get you, lack of a better term, get you on the right track?
I'm really glad you asked that, because you know one of the great things with social media is that there are so many experts out there that can give you insight. The bad thing with social media is that there are so many experts out there that can give you insight. so I had a couple choices. I could just continue to try to go about this journey on my own, or I can ask for help. And so I asked for help. And there's a lot of people out there that will try to self-diagnose. They'll try to self-treat, and because of that, sometimes they will just naturally feel like they're on this journey by themselves. Once I got that out of my head, that I am not on this journey alone, and there are people out there that can give me tools that can help me, from there, I'm like, okay, who can I reach out to? So, I talked to some friends and family members, and it all started with my primary care doctor. And then from there, my primary care doctor, led me to therapy, that led me to a psychiatrist, and, that led me to, coaches, and so on and so forth. So, it all started with my primary care doctor, and then went from there. I tell people all the time, get it out of your head that you're by yourself. It's easy for us to think that we're by ourselves because of
Mm,
just the nature of who we are, but we're not by ourselves. There are people out there that have tools and resources that can help you. There are people out there that have gone through what you're going through, and can understand and empathize, and help you take your life to the next level. It's not just going to be like a quick research on WebMD about how to fix anxiety.
yeah.
It's not that simple. Like, there are people that study this, and they can tailor plans, and create tools specifically for you, because every person is different. You and I could both have generalized anxiety disorder, right? But our symptoms could be completely different.
Right.
Right. So it would be remiss of us to go online and try to treat ourselves the same exact way, with the same treatment, same management style, because it might work for you and not for me, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Asking for help is such a hard thing for people, specifically men, to ask
Yes.
for help, or to even admit that publicly that anything's wrong. They could sit at home by themselves and struggle through it, but it's very, very hard for them to step outside of that. Right. And I think for me, and I'll share a snippet of my story with you just to give context. So my mom battled opioids for 20 years,
Mm,
and she ended up taking her life 7.5 years ago. And I went through a 3-month bender where I was blackout drunk 6 nights a week, numbing the
hmm.
pain. Although I'm very proud to say that I'm very self-aware and I knew what I was doing. So I didn't
Right.
spiral for too long.
Right.
But when I woke up out of this and I kind of faced the grief of it all, I had two aha moments, right? One was my mom didn't die because she was an addict. My mom died because she didn't love herself, right?
Mm,
Which is the mental
hmm.
health side of things. And the
Hmm.
second thing for me was, the second realization was, I didn't love myself. I was never taught how to, so I didn't even know that it was a thing, right? Um, and so when we look at that process, if you were not aware of why you are the way that you are, what would you suggest people do? Would it be like to, just figure some stuff out on your own, look at content, or immediately go to the doctor and say, hey, there's something wrong with me?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that. Uh, People sharing stories like that, especially somebody with a platform like you've helped more people than you realize by telling that
Thank you.
story. So, and I'm so sorry for your loss. But I'm so thankful that you shared that. So thank you for that. Um, with that being said, um, if you feel like things are just spiraling out of control, right? If you tried and tried and tried, but it feels like you kind of hit like a plateau, and it doesn't matter what you do, things aren't getting better, or things are, getting worse, right? Go talk to somebody. I happen to go the primary care doctor route, but that is not the only route. That's the beautiful thing about mental health and mental well-being, is that there is no one path for everybody. Everybody can go a different path and still be successful. We're all kind of stuck in the woods, but the beautiful thing about the woods is that, anybody can walk between the trees, but we're all heading in the same direction. We just happen to be walking in a different path, right? With mental health, it's the same exact thing. Talk to somebody. You never know. Maybe it could be a teacher. It could be your boss. It could be a close friend. There are, people can help guide you. They can hold your hand and pick you up, when you feel like you hit that plateau. So when you feel like things are spiraling out of control and just like you're going days, weeks, months with like just no change and things feeling a little out of control or unfixable, right? Talk to somebody and just keep talking, get it out there and process it, and then you'll know what to do.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I love it. And it's so true. I think surrounding yourself with the right people, even if it's not necessarily, a doctor in some way, shape, or form, just having the right people and opening up about it, like, and knowing that you can trust them is just such a key factor.
Yes.
It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm grateful for the fact that you talk about these things in the way that you do, because it's probably countless amounts of lives, people you don't even know, that you've changed their mindset. You've had them look at it differently. And I think it's huge. But you also kind of talk about two other things, right? You talk about ADHD and you talk about introversion. By the way, I used to think I was an extrovert. I thought, I loved hanging out with my friends, all these things. And then I ended up moving in with my then girlfriend, now wife, and her 2 children. And I was never alone. And I quickly realized that I'm an introvert. I just lived alone before. So I was constantly recharging. And it was this great aha moment for me. So talk a little bit about your introversion. And just so we don't jump from such a heavy subject to a kind of funny one, how does the introversion affect the mental health of a lot of people?
That's a great segue. You could tell you're a podcast, like you've been podcasting for a while. You know how to do.
Done this once or twice.
I love it. It's everything goes hand in hand, right? Everything goes hand in hand, because while one may not be the cause of another, they certainly do have a relationship with each other. I literally, actually, I have a blog post coming out tomorrow on my website that talks about the link between ADHD and anxiety, right? And how one doesn't cause the other, but they're kind of like roommates. They both live in the same place and are affected by the same things in different ways. So when it comes to introversion, I feel we live in an extroverted world, right? A lot of people think that, the only people that are successful are, the extroverts that are out there, that, like, in all of that. And there's this really weird misconception about what introverts are. And I'm glad that you chose the analogy of recharging your battery, because like that's exactly what it is. Introversion doesn't necessarily mean shy. People might be listening to this, be like, there's no way those two are extroverts. They're talking to each other right now. And I'm like, introverts do talk. We do communicate. We're very particular about who we communicate with and why. Right? We recharge our batteries alone as opposed to recharging in public. There's no right or wrong answer here. But introversion goes hand in hand with a lot of different things on the mental health side, because depending on if you are diagnosed with anything, your introversion can be managed, or I'm sorry, your diagnosis can be managed by your introversion. Like, for example, if you feel anxious about something, your introversion, you can come home and process that alone. That you can process that by yourself. You can read a book or listen to music by yourself to help you process that. It might be an ADHD thing where your introversion can be managed in that way. So like it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, I'm a proud introvert. In fact, I was talking to you before we hit record about I'm writing a book, and my book is about embracing your introversion. Nice. Because people are afraid to talk, to embrace it, because they think it's like, oh, introverts, they just stay at home all day. No, not really.
When I figured out I was an introvert, I thought I immediately became a loser.
Yes.
I was like, dang, I don't like people. I don't like it because of the misconception. And I had to do research to kind of realize like, oh no, like I still like people. I just need to be able to recharge. Like that's the big thing for me is like alone time, leave me
Yes.
alone, go out back and have a cigar, not being bothered by the kids. Like, okay, give me an
Hmm.
hour. I got this.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so
Hmm.
it's just so crazy, the misconception
Yeah.
about introversion. I'm glad that you're dispelling that myth.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, to anybody that doesn't know what it's like to be an introvert, or if you want to practice something, I always give people an exercise, and that is, get with a friend or a colleague, somebody that you talk with like all the time, and go like sit in a living room and just like be in the same space, but just like do your own thing. Right?
Yeah.
How do you feel when that happens? Do you feel the urge to just always acknowledge their existence? Do you feel the urge to always talk to them or to do something with them? Does it bother you that you're not doing something together? Like you're one person's on the couch reading a book, the other person's, watching TV. Does that bother you? Like that kind of stuff will really give you insight into like how you are as a person. And to your point, yeah, I really honestly, when I really accepted the fact that I was an introvert, I'm like, man, I'm not going to get anywhere in life because like the only people that are successful are extroverts. And I'm like, that's not the case. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of introverts out there,
Yeah.
that we're doing our thing. I think honestly, and this is, I mean, I'm biased, but I think introverts are, a little bit smarter than extroverts, in my opinion. We think about a lot, before we put it out there, and we process a lot, before we speak up. And I think that showcases our ability to listen and to think about it, process, and then speak.
Yeah. And the ability to scan a room and
Oh, that's the
understand
best part. People
who people
watching.
are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. I can go to the park and just sit and just watch people all the time. I take solo trips all the time. I just got back from a trip to Seattle. And like there was one point I'm just like literally just sitting there, just watching people. And some people are like, why is he just sitting there? Isn't he bored? Not at all. My brain, oh my God, it's an epic movie blockbuster happening up there.
I love it. I love it. It seems like you travel a lot. Is this like you were just in
Yeah, man.
Pittsburgh, then Seattle? It
Mhm.
sounds like I'm a creep, but I just started following you on social media. I'm like, I'm talking
Yeah,
to this guy.
in
I
your
got to see
defense,
what's
I do put
happening.
it out. In your defense, I do put it out. And now, if I didn't put it out there, like it's like, so I saw you were in Seattle. How do you know? How
How
do
do
you
you
know?
know this? It's true. And then you were in Pittsburgh by yourself, mind
Yeah,
you,
man.
and obviously one of the most beautiful ballparks when you went out there.
Oh, PNC Park, it's gorgeous. I
Beautiful.
love
It's
I love
beautiful.
baseball parks. It's definitely in my top five.
I love it. So what's number one?
Mhm. I'm not a Yankees fan, but I hate the Yankees so much, but I love their stadium. I do. It's really nice. Baltimore Orioles is up there.
That's huge.
Citizens, yeah, Citizens Bank Park is. I mean, I'm biased, so I like Citizens Bank. I also love Baltimore. Oh no, I'm sorry. San Francisco. I can't remember the name of the park, but they're right on the bay. It's just I'm all about views, and
Hmm.
those parks all have like really really nice views, and all of that. So yeah, that's
Yeah, dude.
those are my top.
So my mastermind is meeting in Chicago next month, and
Mm,
I'm going to Wrigley for the first time, which is
nice.
like
Oh, that's
it's like
awesome.
bucket list stuff. You know what I
I
mean?
know that and
So
Fenway. I've never been to either of those two parks, and I can't wait to go.
I've been to the outside of Fenway twice.
Yeah,
Never have I been in. We were supposed to take a tour when we went up as a family, but it was raining and they
yeah.
canceled the tour.
Oh,
But it's here nor there. We'll figure it out.
yeah.
But yeah, off on a tangent really quick. ADHD. Let's
Yeah.
switch to that really quick. Hold up.
Segues. I love it. I love it.
This is so I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I've
Hmm.
seen too much of things that like, hey, if you do this, you might have ADHD. And I'm like all the checklists, right? Like I have to have something. If I put something away in a drawer, I forget that I've got to do it. Like
Yeah.
all those things. So are you're diagnosed ADHD, right?
I'm diagnosed with super ADHD. I am diagnosed with severe ADHD. I'm a superhero. It's a superpower.
It really is. If you can harness it,
Yeah.
it is absolutely a
Oh yeah.
superpower. But I feel like
Absolutely.
when you're a kid going through life with that, it's difficult, right? Because when you're in school, you have to fit in a box and you have to do things a certain way, and it just doesn't work that way. How have you been able to navigate that pre-diagnosis, and then how different is it now post-diagnosis?
I wasn't able to navigate because I didn't know I had it. Right. Like, and like I said, like looking back at it now, I'm like, oh. shit, that's why that's why that happened back in elementary school. I get it now. you know but post diagnosis, it's great. And I used to say I battle ADHD, and then a friend of mine pointed out to me, she's an ADHD coach, and she said, it's not a it's a battle, think of it more of a partnership. It's like a coworker in an office that annoys you sometimes. Like they make like tuna fish, they put tuna fish in the
Yeah.
oven or in the microwave, right? And you're like, God dang it. But they're a good worker. I guess I'll figure it out. Like like you find a way to manage it. So post diagnosis, once I was able to put a finger on the things that were happening to me, why they were happening to me, it became easier for me to manage it. I still have my struggles because like this is all still very new to me. I'm 36. I was diagnosed when I was 34. So like this is all very, very new to me. But there are people out there that have been diagnosed their entire life. And yeah, there are a lot of things out on the internet about ADHD, and I always tell people, once again, don't diagnose yourself, because some of the things that might be happening, like just because you forgot your keys, where your keys are, doesn't mean that you have ADHD. Right?
Yeah.
It might,
Yeah.
you just might be forgetful. It might be something else.
There's a big difference between the two, for sure. So
Yeah,
what are some
yeah.
things you do? What are some things you do daily to manage all of these things? I'm sure you have some kind of
Mhm.
routines or some stuff that you do to kind of, calm
Yeah.
some of the stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things because there's a lot of different symptoms. So I'll preface this by saying the symptoms that I'm about to describe are mine. And there's other symptoms of ADHD that people have. Some people have the ones I'm about to describe, some don't. It's a pretty wide ranging thing to have. But time blindness is probably the thing that I struggle with the most. And when I say blindness, for the people that don't know what that is, time is not a thing for me at all. So like I could be, sitting on my couch, just, scrolling through my phone, right? And it'll be 10 o'clock. And I'll look down, I'll respond to a text message, and I'll look up, it's 11 o'clock, right? And now, no, that may sound absurd, but that's legit how my mind works. I can't track time. So the time blindness is huge. So what I have to do is I have an alarm, like wherever I am, I have an alarm across the room that it goes off every 30 minutes. So like that, just like it brings me up. Okay, I know what time it is. I know where I am.
Wow.
Um, Another thing is ADHD paralysis, executive dysfunction. Like it's hard for me to push the start button. If I sit down on my couch, like if it could be the most simple thing, it could be getting up to do the dishes. I could be so excited to do the dishes. I wanted to do the dishes all day. I've been thinking about it. I love cleaning dishes. Can't wait. Right? Sit down on the couch. Dishes are right there. To push that start button to get up and do those dishes, very, very difficult for me. Very, very difficult. Right. So like little things for that, like I'll keep my shoes on. Like when I get home from work, I don't change into comfortable clothes. I have to trick my body into thinking that I'm still rolling. Otherwise, I'm done. Like that's it. Like I'm out for the rest of the night, for the rest of the day. It's just gone.
Wow.
And then obviously medicine helps for me. Not medicine doesn't I'm on Adderall. It doesn't work for everybody. It does work for me personally. And that really, really helps. The sucky part with that though is that like Adderall, it helps you focus. It just doesn't tell you what to focus on.
Mm.
so 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 your hyper focus can, if it's managed right, you can focus on the right things. But sometimes it's like I'm going to rearrange all my DVDs today.
Yeah.
There was an alphabetical order. I think I'm going to do reverse alphabetical now.
That's crazy. That is, I mean, I never really thought of it that way, but that's
Hmm.
absolutely crazy. And so
Yeah.
I just want to let everybody know, like that's listening, you were on the call on time. So I appreciate you getting here, and so you've learned through your life how to manage all of that instead of allowing it to paralyze you. And I think there's a
Hmm.
great lesson in that as people listen to this. A lot of people use that as an excuse, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people utilize that as like, hey, here's my reason I was late to this, or here's my reason I never showed
Hmm.
up, or here's the reason I didn't do the thing.
I literally, for those of you, I don't know if this people will be able to see this, but what I'm holding
Yeah.
up right now is these are all of the meetings that I have today on my phone, right? They're reminders, and that right here at 2:25 podcast interview, right? Because I had to like, I could be like, okay, okay, the podcast interview is going to start at 2:30 today. It's going to be in 10 minutes, right? That 10 minutes, I could lose track of time. And then all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock and I'll be like, shit, I was supposed to call him 30 minutes ago. Like that's what happens. So like I have to have these constant reminders of time.
Wow. I mean,
Mhm,
and it's again, it's great that you're sharing these things with people because they're
mhm,
not going to feel alone. They're not going to feel like there's something wrong with them or they're a freak or like, oh, I'm the worst
mhm.
person, whatever, right? And like,
Yeah.
and it's just such an amazing thing to hear. And here's why this conversation is so important now and always, right? Like when we hit COVID, and the world shut down and everybody was alone, right? Locked down in your house, you can't do anything. Mental health issues went through the roof. Suicide rates went through the roof. Drug
Skyrocketed.
use went through the roof.
Yes. Mhm.
And who knows if anything like that's ever going to happen again in our lifetime. Hopefully it doesn't, but who knows?
Yeah, hopefully
And
not. No
yeah,
more fires.
yeah, please no more, no more. But the reality is we have to be aware, and how do we
Yes.
manage those types of things? And so what do you look for, right? As somebody who clearly protects their energy, protects their time, what do you look for in like the people you decide to choose and spend your time with? I think that that's important for people to hear.
I'm really glad you asked that because as a person entering my late 30s, and this, like you we're a lot more conscious of how we spend our time and with whom. As you get older, your friend circles become smaller, but like that's purposeful, because we want to make sure we're utilizing our time in the best way possible. And so whenever I connect with people, I want somebody that's able to, I'm able to learn from, somebody that is empathetic, somebody that is will listen and validate, and help refill your glass, or in my case, help me refill my glass so I can refill other people's glass. Like that's what I personally look for, and that can happen a number of ways. Genuine connection, and that's where the introvert comes out in me, right? Because like introverts, we really, really, really cherish genuine connection. A lot of people like, oh, introverts don't like to talk. No, we love to talk. We just like put us in a room where we have like a deep conversation. We won't shut up. we won't we won't shut up. Like we'll keep talking because it's something that's valuable to us, and that's how we view friendships as well. That's why we don't, introverts don't like small talk, because it's like, okay, why are we talking? What are we talking? I don't care about the weather. We all see the weather. Yeah, it's nice out. Okay, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Tell me about
how
your
I view it.
deepest, darkest pain.
Right.
Come
No, like
on.
really, really. It's like,
Yeah.
are you diagnosed with anything? Cool. What's that? You have daddy issues? Me too. All right, let's talk about it.
Oh, and I think that's a reason this podcast has been such a gift for me, because it
Mhm.
gave a platform where I can pick somebody out in the world and go, hey, I want to interview that person, and we can go deep.
Yeah.
And people have cried on this show, and we've had just great
Mhm.
conversation because it's just real and deep, and you get right to the
Mhm.
point. There's something about that record light. We were like, oh, I'm ready to go. Let's
Mhm.
go deep. And it's funny because when I
Mhm.
first started the show, it was the exact opposite. We were talking about 7 years ago, podcasting wasn't a thing, and the record light would come on
Yeah.
and the person would just freeze. I'm like, why are you a different person right now? We've
It
evolved or
happens.
devolved as people. The screen doesn't matter anymore.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
want to ask you a question that I ask a lot of people
Yeah.
on the show. I used to ask it
Yeah.
every episode, then stopped, and I'm slowly bringing it back because I think it's a
Yeah.
fascinating question. You've
Mhm.
put out a ton of content, a ton of
Yeah.
content. Do you know
Yeah.
how many videos you've put out?
Oh gosh. And I've made at minimum 2 videos a day, each day for the last 3 years. And
Oof.
that's at minimum. That's not counting the days that I put out multiple. So just videos alone, not counting like podcast episodes or pictures or blogs, or anything like that. Just videos alone, it has to be, dare I say, well over 1,500 to 2,000 videos in the last like 3 years,
That's
for
crazy.
sure. For sure. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. So
it's the first time I ever thought about that. There's a lot of me out there for some reason.
hey, people like it, right? And so that's a huge thing. But
Yeah.
when we look at all this content we put out, and I often think about this podcast and the legacy and how long it can
Hmm.
last after I'm gone.
Hmm.
My question for you is, at the end of your life, Pretend all your content's gone, doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
And you could only be remembered for one sentence. What would that sentence
Mm.
be?
I know exactly what it is. And I don't have my cup with me; it's over there. But there's one of my favorite musicals is the musical Hamilton, and there's a song in it called "Wait for It," sung by Aaron Burr, and he says this one line that has been that stuck with me my entire life, and I pass this on to as many people as I can. In the song, he says, "I am the one thing in life I can control." And I love that line. And I want people to remember me for that, or remember just that line in general, because we so often go through our lives trying to control things that we cannot control. And our happiness is dictated off of things that we cannot control. And it's like, man, imagine if your happiness was based off of things that you control, which is yourself. If somebody's doing something, I think Brene Brown, it might have been Brene Brown. I can't remember. Somebody put out a video even recently that was like, she calls it the let 'em technique, right? If somebody's doing something that, that makes you mad, let them. If somebody wants to leave your
Mm,
life, let them. If a job is, laying people off, let them. Right? So many things that you cannot control. Your happiness is not dictated off of that. Your happiness is dictated off of you and how you react to all of these things. Your feelings are valid, right? However you're feeling is valid, but the actions that takes place afterwards, that is what's going to be key. If you feel sad, it's like, okay, I acknowledge I feel sad. You're allowed to feel sad. What am I going to do now? Because I don't
mm.
want to feel sad anymore. So what actions do I have to take to not feel sad anymore? So I am the one thing in life I can control.
I love it, man. So powerful and absolutely
Yeah.
100% so true. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, how do
Mhm.
people follow you? How do they book you to speak? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, I'll start off my social security number. No, I'm kidding. The easiest way for people to get more information about me, and including links to all my social media channels, is to visit my website, thevibewithkai.com. And it has my blog, my podcast, links to all my social media accounts. I'm pretty much on everything. So, if you're more of like a, you know, Instagrammer than a TikToker, I'm on there. I haven't been on Pinterest yet, but maybe one day I'll get on there. But I'm on
When
everything else.
when they start doing short form video, we'll
Exactly.
hop
Which
over to
which
Pinterest.
listen, I'm at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they had their pretty soon they would roll something like that out. But yeah, so thevibewithkai.com is the best way to watch all my stuff. And yeah, you can I do a lot of speaking engagements. I love speaking with people. I love speaking with organizations and companies, and at forums, and doing fireside chats and Q&As, just to make people feel validated. And I do it with humor, and I want to make people's day just a little bit better.
I love it, man. Like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called the Growth Now Movement, that question is: in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Ooh, my biggest moment of growth. I would have to say my biggest moment of growth is coming to terms with my diagnosis, coming to terms with my ADHD, coming to terms with my anxiety, coming to terms with my depression, acknowledging that these are things that are within me, and that I am a good person, and I have the ability to take these things and use it for good. That in and of itself changed my life, because without it there would be no Vibe with Kai platform. There wouldn't be this conversation that we're having right now. I wouldn't be a guest on your podcast. All of that is based upon the fact that I sat here one day and I said, I am going to do better. I am going to take these things. I'm not going to let it drag me down. I'm going to use it for good and to make myself and the people around me better. And that's changed my life, and I'm glad that it did.
I love it, man. And it's the greatest example of you grow through what you go through, right? And as long as you
Yes.
show up and you react in the right way and be proactive with the things, like, you're going to be able to make a massive change in the world. So dude, thank you so much for
Mhm.
coming on and
Yeah.
sharing your story and your wisdom with my audience, but more importantly, continuing to put out so much content that people need to hear and see. You're truly making a difference in the world, man. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me, and to everybody listening, watching right now, thank you. for your time today. And honestly, if you feel down, if you feel like something's off, go talk to somebody. There is help out there for you. You are not in this alone. There is help out there for you.
Awesome, man. Thanks.